might shock you, but Halloween destroyed its own franchise twice. Halloween Ends is the final movie in this new Michael Myers timeline reboot, and it has everybody's head on a swivel. After being released in theaters and at home through Peacock, it's made over $42 million since opening weekend. But ratings-wise, Papa, it's performed very poorly. Some of you Twitter warriors are even saying that this is worse than H2O, which hit theaters back in 1998, which is bold. Keep in mind, people would say that that movie would haunt the franchise forever, so it's not looking good. The question we are trying to answer today is simple. What went wrong with Halloween Ends? This installment is sitting at a not-so-crispy 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't personally base my movie-going preferences on this bad boy. However, it's a pretty good indication of where the critics and the audience are standing on a particular project. On this movie, there seems to be two very distinct camps. Those who flat out despise the film and those who think that the themes and underlying tones of the movie make it a worthwhile success. I'm gonna give you both sides and answer the question at the end of the video. Obviously, spoilers ahead. The biggest successes for Halloween Ends in my book lie in two major points. Numero uno, a solid new character with a compelling story, aka Corey. Y numero dos, using solid pacing techniques that help tell the story, for better or worse. Contrary to what the trailers had us believe, the linchpin of this story is not Laurie Strode, even though we wanted it to be. Most of Halloween Ends centers around Corey Cunningham, played by Rohan Campbell. A tragic backstory sets us off through a babysitting job 1 year after the effects of the first Halloween, the 2018 version that is. A prank gone awry has Corey accidentally unaliving the kid that he's supposed to be taking care of. Cool little movie Easter egg, however. During that scene where they're watching the horror movie and Corey's fighting with Jeremy, the kid's trying to act all tough, they are watching John Carpenter's The Thing. If that name sounds familiar, it's because John Carpenter was the original director of 1978's Halloween. We're gonna be talking about him more in just a second. The kid bites the dust, literally, from the 4th floor. Corey lands with a slap on the wrist, and this is where we see the rest of the crew. Laurie Strode is dealing with the effects of Halloween Kills the best way she can. She's writing a memoir, bought a new house to share with her granddaughter Allison, and she's even rekindling her relationship with Deputy Frank himself. However, she still carries that sense of dread that nothing is truly over. Michael Myers wouldn't just vanish. She embodies the deepest theme of this film, which is supposed to be letting go of fear. Michael Myers has caused so much heartbreak and carnage in this community that some of the citizens in Haddonfield have decided to unalive themselves instead of facing their reality. After losing her daughter to this unstoppable evil entity, you can't blame Laurie for feeling the way that she does. Laurie is making conscious decisions to try to protect her granddaughter and help the town heal, but her tumultuous memories haunt her, and it's not getting better. Allison, on the other hand, is working as a nurse, naturally ready to move on. The incidents that happened just a couple short years before have crippled the town of Haddonfield, and as a survivor, she's trying to let go of the past, something that her grandma finds very difficult to do. Now that you understand the premise, this is the saving grace of the film. As Corey tries to reintegrate himself into society, he faces bullying, insults, and being treated as an outcast. This leads him to develop a solid connection with Allison, since they're both victims to their past. From here, Corey could have a better life, a happy ending, so to speak, which in these type of franchises is extremely rare. He should try starting over in a new city, maybe even exploring the world with Allison. But the darkness inside him festers, and it sets him on the same dark path that consumed Michael Myers. You get exactly where this is going. We as the audience already know from films like The Joker that seeing the protagonist's slow descent into madness is beyond intriguing. Exactly like it happened with Michael Myers, Corey's external circumstances did influence him to become a killer. However, unlike the young version of Michael Myers, Corey is basically an adult. He had the agency to make those choices. He chose to fully embrace his sadistic nature even though he had a means of escape. This deranged parallel between Corey and Michael is extremely well made. One of them was a victim, and that shaped his entire life and led him to become an unstoppable killing machine. In the sense of Corey, it's even more tragic because he had an opportunity to escape this life of torment and destruction, but he succumbs to it. On the narrative side, it's nothing new, but it freshens up the story for a franchise that has been more of the same for what seems like decades. Now, when it comes to the pacing of the film, I feel that it heightens the idea greatly as we bounce from Corey's descent into madness to Allison's struggle at work and Laurie dealing with the first inclinations that Corey is following the same dark path that she saw in Michael all of those years ago. Hey yo, you still with me? You better be, because with those 2 points, that's where the positives stop. This is where the ship truly starts to sink. Why is everybody so upset at Halloween Ends? Does it actually suck? Context: Jamie Lee Curtis is the original and longest running final girl in the slasher genre. And with this film, we were supposed to see the long-awaited brawl to decide who is boss. The trailer and the marketing for this film touted it to be the battle of the century 40 years in the making. What we got was far less than spectacular. To some people, it might even seem like false advertising. After a couple of okay copycat unalivings from Corey embracing the mantle of the Shade, Michael and Laurie meet at her house to settle the score once and for all. Granted, this set piece does have a couple of intense, well thought out scenes, including Laurie considering taking one to the dome because her denial has corrupted her family and by extension the entire community. But in the end, sadly, Michael gets trapped, pinned, and filleted in unremarkable ways, signaling the official end to this trilogy's timeline that didn't stick the landing. They did, however, add a sense of finality to the story, which is new, considering that they did not have a burial. They straight up put an end to the boogeyman through a metal scrap meat grinder. I'ma be honest, it was not pretty. Bottom line, to me personally, Halloween Ends is a slight disappointment. The tone and the thematic elements were set perfectly, but it tries to do too much at the same time. Centering the narrative weight of the story around Corey makes sense, considering the history of the character. Sadly, this took the limelight off of what we wanted to see. Remember when I mentioned John Carpenter at the beginning of the video? Yeah, he fuels into this too. How exactly? He's been famously critical of the sequels to his original work. My editors are gonna do some amazing magic and put the quotes around the screen, but essentially, he remarked that Halloween 2, the original sequel, was an abomination and a horrible movie, further adding that H2 was just given a bunch of money but lacked any creative direction to continue his story appropriately. Interestingly enough, he did have some positive things to say about Halloween 3, the Season of the Witch, stating that this one was excellent because it was different. That, my friends, is what takes us to the root issue for Halloween Ends. The original creator himself didn't intend for this to be a mindless loop of Michael Myers being this unstoppable brute force that keeps coming back for more. He's not Jason Voorhees, he's not Freddy Krueger. He was always meant to be the living personification of fear, which would naturally over time lead some poor unfortunate souls to embody his mantle and wreak havoc on their own communities. Corey would have been a great candidate for that kind of spin-off, but not for the end of this saga. The themes of regret, survivor's guilt, denial, and letting go of fear are executed beautifully in this project. But that third act makes this movie fall flat on its face, essentially making it a 2-hour tease of what could have been. Overall, this Halloween trilogy taught us that simple is better. The first one was about confronting fear. The second one showed us the consequences of denying that that fear exists. And this one was meant to see our characters letting go of that fear. With that said, I'm gonna have to give Halloween Ends a 5 out of 10. It's got substance, but it did not stick the landing at all. As a fan of the franchise, I would be negligent to say don't watch this, especially since you have the comfort of watching it in your own home. Just like it should have been for Corey, the decision is ultimately up to you. Speaking about that, we actually made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. So drop a like if you enjoyed the breakdown, subscribe if you want to see more with that notification bell on so you can get an instant noti for whenever I go live or whenever I post another one of these, and I'll see you at the next one.